All right, there, folks. So, today I want to talk a little bit about jazz and a few misconceptions that folks have about uh, jazz music, I guess. So, when I was coming up as a musician, I came up in the country world down in Texas, mostly playing Johnny Cash covers. Um, and picking along with other pickers playing bluegrass and country music. And it's a lot of 1-4-5 progressions. And there was this misconception that we would all kind of talk about if somebody played a song that had more than 3 or 4 chords. And we would be like, oh, you must be into jazz, right? Well, I mean, that's true to a degree that some jazz songs have, a couple of chords. But there's this misconception that all jazz uses these crazy extended chords and that are just absolutely finger bending. Um, and as a guitar player, having somewhat short fingers, um, playing huge extensions like that cover like half the fretboard, yeah, that's not happening. Um, so I was just completely put off to jazz for a long time. I just didn't get it. Oh no, my mic is falling. Um, Tighten this down. 20-year-old mic stand. Um, so I just didn't get it for a long time. It wasn't. I guess it wasn't my jam. It wasn't really what I listened to. To me, a lot of it kind of sounded like elevator music, and it seemed like the it was this music that had like uh, all these chords and all these extensions, and all the solos were played super fast. So it seemed like it was a music made for super technical musicians, right? Not necessarily for musicians who just wanted to sing something from the heart and wanted to sing um, about their life experiences. So, fast forward, I suppose, one of my mentors in that country world was a piano player. Uh, and she had done all sorts of different genres, you name it. She had been a session musician, playing on people's albums in Nashville and LA and all that. Um, so she could sit in with a lot of different genres, but her solo music that she made um, was mostly jazz, and that kind of caught me off guard. Um, I mean, shouldn't say it caught me off guard. I'm not on, was never honestly all that surprised, but just hearing some of her jazz songs, it's like that's really good. That's amazing. And then like getting into college a little bit later, I didn't quite get into jazz during that time, but getting into college a bit later, uh, one of my roommates was really big into like rockabilly stuff, which I've always loved. I mean, hell, like I said, I came up playing Johnny Cash covers, right? And he is definitely considered to be amongst those early rockabilly cats like Carl Perkins, um, and some of the early rock and roll guys. Um, but in that, he got me into a band called Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. And at first, I was like, "Oh, is this rockabilly? It kind of sounds a little different. It's nice. It's got some groove to it." And he's like, "No, this is swing. This is like big band swing." And so I had to like, I knew big band was jazz, but I had to like re-evaluate what I thought jazz was. I thought jazz was like slow tunes with these, like I said, really crazy chords. Um, and so through that, I started kind of like getting into certain musicians that, like Cab Calloway. Um, and of course, I was always into the blues, right? Um, and there's kind of a middle ground I would say. Now, I would not ever say that somebody like Robert Johnson is jazz, and I wouldn't quite say that um, somebody like Peggy Lee or Frank Sinatra or I mean, Billie Holiday's got some songs that could be considered blues or bluesy, but I wouldn't call her a blues singer. I wouldn't call any of those cats a blues singer. Cab Calloway, yeah, he's more of a swing guy, and but he's got some songs that kind of could go either way. But that's the point, right? Is like at their core they're different, but there is that gray area, kind of like uh, country and bluegrass, right? Um, that they share a kindred spirit. So as I'm getting into this, and I'm kind of rediscovering a lot of the stuff that I thought I knew, right, and reevaluating everything, and and of course, during that time, starting to get into the Fallout games, that really got me into jazz songs like Johnny Guitar um, by Peggy Lee. Uh, and then, of course, getting into Frank Sinatra around that time as well, and just kind of rediscovering all of that. So, when I started learning these songs on guitar, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. This is just a 1-4-5. There's no extended chords, they're just regular cowboy chords. Could be. There wasn't any voicings listed on how to play it. So a lot of times I play it with open cowboy chords, right? Um, or just some kind of triad. Um, but it was a lot simpler than I thought it was. And then getting into some songs like My Way and realizing, or frick, uh, Good Morning Heartache by Billie Holiday. There's just something heavy about there's just something just heartfelt about that, right? And that just kind of comes with this weightiness. Um, so yeah, getting into this and it's realizing like jazz is a lot simpler than I thought it was. We're going to take a little break here, and I'm going to kind of demonstrate for you what I'm talking about. Uh, this next song up is called My Way. Now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, state my case, of which I am certain. I've lived a life that's full and traveled each and every highway. Much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and much more than this, I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, that he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. Let the record show I took the blows and did it my way. Loved, laughed and cried, had my fill, my share of losing. And now, as tears subside, I find it quite so amusing to think of all I've done, and might I say, not in a shy way. No, no, not me. I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall, did it my way. All right, folks, we are back. So that song is I want to say is in the key of C, and it's just C, F, G, with the C7. It's also got an F minor, and I want to say it's got an E chord in there. I may have just thrown that in there for my own entertainment. I have come to realize that I really like that E major chord right after C. For those of you who haven't noticed in a lot of my songwriting. But this beautiful song, I forget who wrote it, but Frank Sinatra just delivers this absolutely astounding delivery of like, I've lived this full ass life and I'm proud of some things, not so proud of some others, but who cares? Like, I'm proud of the life that I've lived. It's been full of ups and downs. It's been exciting. It's been quite a ride, and here we are. I love that. And he just sings it with just, such he sings it with this kind of honesty and authenticity that brought me to country music in the first place. And that's really, I guess, what I look for in music is like, yeah, I mean, you can have witty lyrics, you can have, good composition, but does it come off as truth? Does it come off as heartfelt? And I was going to say, you look at most of my influences, guys like Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan and Robert Johnson, like, these guys all kind of have this, like, heart on their sleeve, just, maybe that's the wrong, but they just feel like they don't have anything to hide. They're putting it out there like it is, Dylan almost sometimes feels, some of his music comes off a little angry sometimes, but I mean, that's an authentic emotion, right? We've all been there. But like, and then sometimes he comes off almost like a preacher. But everything he says sounds like absolute truth. Um, and then Cash sounds like a judge handing down a sentence. Jeez. Um, or sometimes he sounds like a convict giving a confession. Or, sounds like he's in a confessional talking to a priest. I love that. I love that in a song. And this song kind of has that same energy. And then Robert, well, he, he's Robert. Um, so Robert Johnson kind of has this otherworldly feel, but he feels like he's, I'm not going to say confessional, but just everything he says, you want to believe it. Like, when he starts singing, I went down to the crossroads. Uh, hey, go run, tell my friend Willie Brown that I'm standing at the crossroads and I feel I'm sinking down. There's almost a desperation in his voice, like he's grabbing you by the collar and saying, "Hey, go get my friend. Tell me to help. Go get help." Um, and it doesn't come off as disingenuous or phony, and it doesn't come off like just typical dance tunes or just passive something to passively listen to, right? There's actually some weight to the lyrics, I guess. And then their delivery, of course, like I said, comes off as authentic and honest. Um, but I guess that's also something that's difficult to pin down. Like, who's to say what is and what isn't authentic, right? Um, One of my favorite, and another thing that got me into jazz, and especially here lately, is Tom Waits. Um, that guy. But and here's the thing: it's like you take a guy like Tom Waits, and you listen to these songs. You're like, oh man, that's so beautiful. That's so heartfelt. And then you listen to the story of how he wrote it in interviews, and you're like, this guy is so full of shit. Um, and it just kind of makes you question all of it. But I think that's kind of the point too. Uh, I think it was like Old 55. He was saying, you know, he was starting to tell the song of how he wrote it. And he just said, "Well, I'm trying to remember, but I guess we'll just make something up." And so he runs with this story, and it's like, man, how many of these stories, how many of these songs are just something you rolled off the cuff and just have absolutely great delivery. Um, but that's what it is. Like we are performers, right? And the illusion of authenticity, I guess, is greater than the I don't want to say the illusion of authenticity because you should always be authentic in your music, but the stories you tell don't necessarily have to have happened. Um, and I'll be the first to own up that like I tell stories from a first person perspective that I have not experienced, but that in all of them there is a grain of truth of something that I felt. And that's why I wrote it, right? Because it expressed that story that I'm telling expressed a sentimentality that I have first person experience with, and therein lies the truth and the authenticity of the song. Um, and then you can do that. You can take any genre and apply that format. Um, and I think a lot of the jazz songs that I hated or just wasn't really interested in at the time just felt like passive listening, right? It just felt like something you'd hear on an elevator or in a bar, in a noisy piano bar. Maybe piano bars aren't noisy, but the bars I go to, I guess, are. Um, or like, it felt like something like that I guess lacked depth. Um, but I was wrong. I was so very wrong. Um, and even this, so even the little horn riff that we hear at the beginning of the podcast now, that's one that I wrote a while back. That I was working on that one for quite a while. I had the chord progression and the kind of like, I had the kind of like the melody in my head and the chord progression down, but it took me forever to come up with how I wanted to write that song. And then as I'm writing it, my wife's actually the one who came up with the line, "Here I am trying to write another damn song." I want to say her mother helped us write that one too, um, or was at least there in the room. Um, we're sitting here trying to come up with this, and I'm like, man, I really want to write a song with this progression, but I just could not come up with any words. And that led to the idea of like, okay, we'll write a song about how frustrating it is trying to write songs. And it's kind of goofy, it's kind of silly, um, and we definitely play it off kind of playful. But again, there is something, a real, genuine, heartfelt emotion there, a genuine frustration between how the world is and how we want it to be. Um, so I guess we will take another moment and play that song for you guys. I know we played it on, what was it, the first episode? Let me see here. Uh, yeah, uh, I think it was the pilot episode or the episode 0, the introductory episode. But we'll go ahead and play Everything Is As It Was here for you guys. Enjoy. Well, I sat down to write a song about the things in the world that are going on. But the more things change, oh, the more they stay the same. The more they stay the same, oh, the more things change. Oh, another year is come and gone. Inflation is putting folks overdrawn. The fat cats are cashing in to ride along. And here I am trying to write another damn song. Oh, 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 oh. You might worry or you might fret that anything you do, it'll put you in debt. How you gonna make it if you don't even try? But without a degree, then you need not apply. Oh, oh. All right. So that was Everything Is As It Was. And for those of you who haven't caught on to this by now, a lot of these songs that I'm putting into the podcast are not the songs that are not the versions of the songs that you'll actually hear on Spotify. A lot of these are outtakes. So for one reason or another, I've decided to go back in and change the way the song sounded. So whether, I think in this case that was just the basic EQ and the compression, stuff like that. So nothing major, still the actual original takes of the songs. Just a few tweaks here and there. But some of these ones you'll hear are entirely different takes. But and I didn't talk about that last verse. So that last verse, again, the juxtaposition of the way the world is versus the way we want it to be. Uh, you know, and then that last verse, without a degree, you need not apply. That was largely born out of my frustration of companies not wanting to hire anybody that doesn't have a degree, even for like simple jobs like nights, like, you know, shelf stockers or cashiers or whatever. I don't know if it's still like this, but we went through a period there for a little while where nobody was hiring if you didn't at least have a degree or were not pursuing one. Um, I eventually got my associates because I decided that uh, I was not going anywhere in life. I was one of the lucky few, though, that found ways to, I guess, game the system and not take out loans. Um, I know it's not like that for everybody, but um, I guess best advice I could give is just use the resources you have available and do the best you can with what you got. And, everybody's got to ask themselves that question, like, is this really the path for me? Yeah, like, everybody wants you to do the thing, right? But not all of us are made to fill that cookie cutter path, right? So I think that's one way that society has failed, is because, like, people aren't all alike, and not everybody is going to be successful in the same ways. Success is going to look different for different people. So I guess that was that first one that I guess that was that first song that I pulled out that E chord and then that D7 for the progression. But all of this is to say that none of your jazz tunes have to be overly complicated, and you can be heartfelt or playful, and you can express whatever emotion you're trying to express within any framework, and make it as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, and still be authentic, right? So I guess that just about wraps up. I hope you guys have had a great evening, and we shall see you next time.